Appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. As Shane said, this is our Infor OS Portal What's New and Exciting session. I will ask that if you have questions to please drop those in the chat in GoToWebinar. Daryl will be monitoring those and he'll tackle me and make me stop talking so that we can actually answer those questions for you. So please feel free to.
Not in the chat. Drop them in the Q&A.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry.
Q&A, questions, going to Q&A. Okay. So I just have a couple slides and we're going to jump right into looking at the system. So what we're going to talk about is how do you get access to the OS portal in trial mode. So we'll walk you through that process. We'll take a look at the new navigation menu and the session tabs and some of the neat things that have been added. We'll show you how you can use the Smart Panel and how you can create your own insight groups in the Smart Panel. Then we'll jump over and take a look at some of the workspaces that were formerly called home pages. They're now called workspaces in the new OS portal. And Daryl will jump in and show us what those new persona-based workspaces look like. And then we'll stop for questions at the end too, if there are any. So everybody has access to the OS portal in trial mode right now. And the way you gain access to that is a couple ways, actually. Infor last month added in this button that's at the top of Ming.le that says, try the new OS portal. If you click on that, it will actually log you into the OS portal in your tenant. If you don't click on that or you don't want to do it that way, you can always just add the V2, like I have highlighted here in yellow, between the infor-cloudsuite.com and your tenant name. So either way works fine. If you click on the new, try the new OS portal, it actually creates this URL for you, and then you could copy that and make that as your favorite. There are a couple things that you have to make sure you have. You have to be an administrator in your system, so you have to be in the Infor System Administrator security role or the Ming.le administrator security role. Or your users can access this if they are in the portal user security role or the portal content administrator security role. So any of those security roles will get you into the new OS portal while it's in trial mode. When you're ready to switch from trial to have this as your permanent, you just enter an incident with Infor and tell them what tenants you have and when you would like that to be switched over to the new portal. So when you're ready to do that, just enter an incident. If you have questions about that, you can always check in with us. So let's jump in and take a look at the portal. So the portal is the new Ming.le. It's that interface, the user interface that everyone logs into first when they log into the system. It replaces Ming.le, but it looks very similar. So you're not going to have that much of a difficulty trying to transfer your users over to the new portal. It's very similar. There are just some differences, and we'll cover those right now. So what we're talking about with the Ming.le port or with the OS portal is the black bar that we have across the top. This is the navigation bar. It still starts with the home button. So I'm on a workspace right now. If I hit the home button, you'll notice that I have my Cloud Suite distribution set up as my my home page, my home space. We do that by selecting whatever you want to be your home space. You have the ability to change that by clicking the down arrow and saying, I want to set this as my new home. So that's what the home button will take you to, whatever you have set as home. Next to that, instead of the application switcher, we have the navigation menu. Navigation menu is a little bit different, but this is where all of your workspaces, formerly home pages, where all of your bookmarks, and all of the applications that you have access to reside. Everything is in the navigation menu. So I have those three main categories available to me: applications, bookmarks, and workspaces. Across the top, as we open up new applications or workspaces, we have the session tabs. One of the nice things about the new OS portal is I can very easily switch between different applications by selecting my session tabs. I no longer have to go up to the application switcher and jump around. I can move right by selecting my session tabs. I also have a new addition to the navigation bar, and that's the little down arrow at the end of my session tabs, which shows me all my open tabs and all of my recently closed tabs. So if I've been working in something and I accidentally close it, I can jump right back into it with my recently closed tabs here.
Okay, Clark, we have our first question.
Yes, sir.
When we change over from Mike Seidel at McGee, he says, when do we change over? Do users have to have those security settings?
They don't. They only have to have those while you're in trial mode.
Okay.
Once you enter the incident and Infor switches you over, that V2 disappears in your URL, and your normal user security gives people access to the portal.
And that's now, but starting in April, after the April release, they're just going to be switched over.
That's right. The end of April, the new OS portal will be the portal that everyone logs into. Infor is making that switch the end of April.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Clark. That's it.
Perfect. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about what we have in the navigation menu. So when I select the navigation menu, I have those three sections. I have the ability to edit and change my menu a little bit. I can move my section display order around. Maybe I want my applications at the top. And if I select it and move it up, drag and drop, it will rearrange that for me. And now my applications is at the top of my navigation menu. Like I showed with the session tabs, I have the ability to set any of my applications as my home. So if I have something set as my home like I do right now, my Cloud Suite distribution is set at home, I can remove that as my home button and select one of my other applications as my home. I have the ability to change the number of applications, workspaces, and bookmarks that are displayed in my navigation menu also. So if I go back to my menu settings, this slider bar at the bottom allows me to change the number of selections that show up in each section. So I just changed mine back to 4. When I go back in here, now we'll see that I have 4 selections in each section. I also have the ability to change which order my applications, workspaces, and bookmarks are displayed within each section. So if I want my document management moved up, I can drag and drop that also. One application that has changed, and I'm going to jump in there real quick just to talk about the migration process, is the OS application. Let me drill into the OS application and open that. And if we go into the portal settings and the migration tab, Infor ran this migration for everyone starting in May and ending in sometime in July last year. So if you come into this OS application and go to migration, you may have a different date here, but this migration was run so that at that point in time, all of your information was transferred over to the new OS portal. If I've been in making changes, maybe my users are creating their own new home pages, or we've changed security, we've added users, I can come in and rerun this while I'm in trial mode. All I have to do is click on Start, select what I want, or tell it to send everything for me, and then click the Start button, and that will rerun this migration. So any changes that I've made, created new home pages, added users, changed security, users may have created new bookmarks. All of that information will be migrated over to the OS portal for you automatically. I can run this migration as often as I want. So if we're in making changes regularly and we want to get the most recent data there for our users to take a look at, make sure they have their bookmarks, things like that, we could rerun this and then roll out that new URL to our users. So again, this was run for you sometime back between May and July. So you may want to refresh that. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about some of the settings across here in the navigation bar. As I open applications, I can pin things to my navigation bar. So if I use this customer service workspace a lot, I can pin that so that when I log in, that workspace will be automatically opened for me and it'll show up in my navigation bar. Can do that with any application that I have. When I'm on that application, select it and say pin to tab. Bookmarks work the same way that they did in Ming.le, except we don't have that bookmark icon in our navigation bar anymore. Those bookmarks will show up in our navigation menu. But creating a bookmark is exactly the same as it was when I was in Ming.le. I would navigate to the area of the system that I want to create a bookmark. Maybe I'm in order inquiry. I can go up here to my session tab and click bookmark this page. I can change the name if I want to, and then save that. I can also create folders within my bookmarks section in my navigation bar. So if I wanted to group maybe all of my order bookmarks in one section, I can create a folder for that. So I create that folder and select it here, and then when I hit save, that will be added into my bookmarks for me automatically. So when I want to go to my bookmarks, I open up my navigation bar and click on one of my bookmarks, and that'll take me to that page. So bookmarks work pretty much the same as they did in Ming.le. You'll notice that I have my user menu over here, except I don't have all of the selections that I used to have in Ming.le. I have user-specific settings now under my user menu. My user management and my administrative type things are now in the OS application. So when I go to my applications and select OS, you'll notice that this is where my security is. So my user security, setting up users, is now under OS. My document management control center can be accessed through the OS application, as well as my Ion desk. Once you're selected into one of these applications, like in my case, I selected Ion desk, everything looks exactly the same as it did before from Ming.le. It's just I gain access to that now from the OS application. So that's one of the major changes with the OS portal, is the way you access those administrative type functions in the system. Some of the other things that I have the ability to do under the user menu is my user settings. So in user settings, I have access to themes, so I can change the background to be the light, dark, or high contrast. I also have the ability to set color, and this is at the user level. So user by user, your users can select what color they want to have display in the top menu bar here. I also have the ability to set this accent color globally for all of my users. I do that from the OS application under Portal, Settings, and General Settings. That's where my Portal administrative settings are at now. So once I'm in General Settings, if I scroll down a little bit here, you see that I can set an accent color globally for all of my users. My users still have the ability to set it individually from the user settings, but globally I can set it here. What I suggest people do is when you're switching over to the OS portal, let's take advantage of that accent color. Maybe have your production in one color, your training environment in a different color, and your test in a third color. That way it's very apparent when people are logged in. If they're doing testing, they won't forget that they're in that TST environment instead of PRD. So again, we can set that accent color from the OS application under settings and general settings. And then you want to save that too. Let's talk about the Smart Panel. That's this panel on the far right-hand side. And that's what used to be your context apps, your contextual applications. They're now contained within the Smart Panel. I can open the Smart Panel by clicking on the Widgets button. That gives me access to my context apps, same context apps that you're used to seeing, except now they're called widgets. So I have widgets that are running within a Smart Panel. You may find that some of these widgets don't work in the new OS portal. You could possibly have an old contextual app that's no longer supported in the OS portal. If that's the case, you have the ability to come in and edit that portal or that Smart Panel and remove those applications, those older context applications, and select the new widgets that are used in place of those. One of them that I came across was Notes. I had to change the Notes widget to be the newer Notes widget so that my notes would display properly in my Smart Panel. The other thing I can do with the Smart Panel, I can change the size of it. So if I want to have it take up a little bit more real estate so I can see more of those widgets in view, I can easily drag that and drop it over and it can change the size. I can easily change the size by clicking on my expand button. I can also pop this Smart Panel out and put it on a different monitor if I wanted to. So I clicked on that top button that said pop out. That allows me to have that in its own browser window, and I can drag and drop and put that over on another monitor if I need to. If I want to put that Smart Panel back in place, I just click the close button down here within the Smart Panel, and that moves it back into where it was on the right-hand side of my screen. Some of the other icons that we have available here in the Smart Panel, we have our Coleman, our AI applications can run within the Smart Panel. I also have the inbox. So the inbox used to be up across the top in Ming.le. Now it's part of the Smart Panel, which I think is a great feature because all those alerts and tasks that I'm creating in Ion and sending to my users, they now have the ability to view those right next to the application that they're working in. So if I want to make this a little bit smaller so I can see my application better, if I'm working on a particular purchase order because I have an alert that it's gone on hold, I can view this information right here and then view that purchase order right next to it. Same thing with tasks for approval. Maybe I have a purchase order that I need to approve, and provided this is for my company, and I'm not sure that it is, but let's give it a try. I have that drill back where it can open that application that can open that PO right within my CSD application to the left of the Smart Panel. Now that was one that I didn't have in my environment, but let me select an alert here that is in my demo database here and see if I've got one that I can open up and show you how the drill backs work. Same thing as I had before, I can expand this and see more information there. I can click in it to open it. I still have the ability to drill in and take a look at those attributes that we've pulled into the alert. This one doesn't have a drill back, but it's the same type of functionality that we had before. I would assign that to me when I've done the work that I need to do. Maybe I open up purchase order inquiry and go look at this PO, make any notes that I need to make, do whatever work I need to do. I click the done button. It closes that alert and opens the next one in my list. So just same functionality, except now it's within the Smart Panel, so I can view it right next to the application. And again, if I have a bunch of these that I'm working on, I can pop that Smart Panel out, put it on another monitor, and do my work side by side that way. Any questions there yet? If not, I'll keep going.
Oh, so we got one from Tim at FlowSource who says, have you seen any performance gains or losses with the new portal in regards to system resources, RAM, CPU usage, etc.?
I really haven't seen any performance changes with the new OS portal, with the new OS portal. I've been working on it in almost every environment that I go into, and it seems pretty seamless. I'm not really seeing any improvement or degradation as I'm working in those different environments.
Yeah, I would say the same thing, Clark. I think it's pretty darn snappy, and no, it's pretty good, Tim. We haven't seen anything. Brian asks, remind me when this takes effect. It takes effect during the April release. So this will happen in the April release, which will be the third Saturday of April. So for those who are looking at the calendar, that should be on the 20th, the evening of the 20th, going into over that weekend. So just be aware that it will happen in the April release.
Yep. So now is the time to take advantage of the trial mode and get in there and start moving around.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it for now, Clark.
Okay. So back to the smart panel. So the other thing that I really like about the smart panel is they've added smart help in here. So if I click on the smart help, it takes me into all the help that's available in docs.infor.com. So I have the help right next to the screens that I'm working on. If I'm working on a sales order, I want to open a sales order and maybe I have a new employee and they have a question about what a specific field means or what data should be in that field, they can jump right into that smart help that's specific to that screen. If they need some more real estate, they can drag it open and go ahead and read that help. So again, smart panel right next to your work. I think it's improved the flow quite a bit. We're not jumping between tabs up at the top or trying to open things separately from that. The other thing, remember with Smart Help is you can have your own content built into here too. So if you have your processes and procedures written up, you can come in here under my content and my documents and upload those documents into IDM and have them show up in context with the area of CSD that you're working in. I think another question popped in there.
Yeah, another question here, Clark. Do we have the ability to import settings to all users? That's from Mike at McGee again.
So I'm not sure, Mike, if you mean the current settings that you have. So part of that migration process that I showed from the OS application, that will take all of your settings from Ming.le over to the OS portal. Or when you enter the incident with Infor, they will run that migration and transfer all of your settings over for each user.
So you don't have to do it, Mike. It's just going to happen.
Yep. Okay. Back to the smart panel. A little bit more about this. If I go to my widgets, I mentioned before that you can create your own insight groups. The way we do that is we can come in with the drop down next to the widgets selection, and we have the ability to add or create our own insight groups. Now I have a couple other examples that I've created for me in my training and testing. I've created one that just has some CSD specific widgets. So I've created an insight group that has my reports, notes, contacts, and I do some work with IDM. So I want this context viewer so that I can see what's going on and how I can link my IDM document type to my view in CSD. So I've created my own insight group for that. The way we do that is click on add. We have to give it a name. If I could type, I would be dangerous. Click OK there. And it'll take us into the insight group where we can start adding widgets. These are the same widgets that are available for our workspaces. So any widget that you would normally have on a home page today, you'll find in the widget catalog. So maybe you want to have an insight group set up just for monitoring how the system is performing. So I might have some statistics and usage widgets that I add into an insight group here. You can add all of those in on your own insight group. Just scroll through and find the ones that you want. Maybe we'll add that one in. We'll add in maybe Ion API traffic. And of course, now my system's gonna stop and think about things while I scroll through here. Hopefully I haven't lost you guys and lost my internet. There we go. We'll add that one
Still hear
in.
you, Clark.
Okay, maybe we're looking for API errors, API traffic. We can add all these things in, and then I'd have some statistics that are available in this insight group. So I've added some of my things in here. Again, just like a home page, I can move things around and change the location, get the insight group laid out just the way that I want it. Go ahead and hit save. Some information I need to enter on this one. We can go ahead and select this. We want to look at our Ion services APIs. Go ahead and add that in. Now I've got some statistical information. I can watch what's happening in my system, and I can still be working in my CSD environment if I need to. So insight groups is a nice, another nice feature that they've added with the Smart Panel. Once I've created this, if this is something that other users would benefit from, I can publish this to an insight group catalog. So I can go ahead and hit publish, have to give it a description. I can set my translations. I can set my permissions for who should have access to this based on security roles or a functional role or even at a user level. Go ahead and hit apply on that and then publish it. And then that becomes available in an insight group catalog. So you can tell your users, instead of having to create their own insight groups, they could come in here under the drop down and go to browse. And I must have added all of them that I've published here. So it would normally open up an insight group catalog that I could select from. Unfortunately, I've selected everything already. So if I do want to remove one, I can just go ahead and delete that. And it shows me here that it'll delete this insight group, but it'll still be available in the catalog. So let's see if that'll let me browse the catalog now. So there I've got a couple that I can select from my insight groups and add in to my Smart Panel. Okay. So that's a little bit about insight groups. One thing I didn't touch on, and as we go in and start talking about the workspaces that are available to us, some of the new persona-based workspaces use some user settings here. So under user settings, you'll notice I have CSD workspaces available. This is where I can define what company and user ID I'm going to use in my persona-based workspace, what buyer I'm associated with, a date range, and a snooze duration. And Daryl will talk about those here in a minute when he's talking about the persona-based workspaces. Okay, so workspaces. Let's talk a little bit about the workspaces. So all of your home pages that you've created in Ming.le will be transferred over to the OS portal, and they'll show up as workspaces. You have the ability, just like before, to add in a workspace. You can create your own workspace using new workspace or add a workspace in from the workspace catalog. We select the workspace catalog and click continue. It's the same thing. It shows you a list of those older home pages that you may have set up in your current environment. You also have access to all of the standard home pages or workspaces that Infor has created and made available to you. All of those are transferred over to the OS portal also. Within my workspaces, I still have the ability to go in and edit those. So if it's a workspace I've created on my own, I can edit it here. If it's something that I'm a content administrator for, I'd have the ability to come in and edit that also under the navigation menu and the more three dots more menu for any of those workspaces. If I delete a workspace, if it's a private workspace, just like before in Ming.le, it's going to delete that home page for me. Or if it's a published, it would just remove it from my list of workspaces. So same functionality that we had before, just laid out a little bit different. Instead of being a more menu in the home page menu bar, it's just part of the selection within the navigation bar for that workspace. Any other questions come up yet?
Oh, are there template workspaces that we can use?
So yeah, I would think of those standard workspaces as being a template. You can use those certainly as a template. You always have the ability with the workspace, if it is one of those standard workspaces that Infor has created, you have the ability to create a duplicate of it, and then you can make your changes there to personalize it more to fit you or to fit your company better. So absolutely, you could think of the standard workspaces as the templates. If you wanted to see a list of those, I'm going to go under the OS application again. If I go to Workspaces, here's where you can see any published workspaces that you have in your environment. Here's the standard workspaces that Infor has made available to us. So again, you could always select these. You can change permissions. You can add it into your list of workspaces and then break it off as a duplicate and make your changes to it.
And then can we set what workspaces are available for users at a global level?
Yeah, you can. Within the OS portal, under settings and general settings, I have the ability still to set a default workspace down here at the bottom. So I can set a default workspace that's pushed out to all of my users, and I can add exceptions into this. So I can have different default workspaces for different users, still have mandatory workspaces available to us too, where a default workspace, I can push it out to my user, but the user still has the ability to remove that from their list of workspaces. A mandatory workspace, they can't do that. That is mandatory. They have to have that in their list of workspaces. I can also turn off the workspace catalog. So I can either enable that or disable it. And I can either enable or disable private workspaces or the standard workspaces. So yeah, we can control if we don't want to make those available to users or if we want to make them available to everyone with some exceptions.
All right, this is a good one, Clark, because it goes along the line of what's going on here. Are the widgets available for the workspaces the same as those available to the smart panel?
And yes, they are. It's all the same widgets between workspaces or the smart panel.
And that's one of the big differences because now we're really kind of working in the same environment rather than before they were completely different environments, context apps versus home pages.
And this is probably a good point, Daryl, to hand it off to you and have you go into the workspaces a little bit more.
All right, so I will make myself the presenter, and if I do this right, the right screen will show. So do you see my OS Portal screen, Clark?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Yeah, so Clark went in and talked about workspaces. So just as before, there's a bunch of different workspaces. I put it up in the answer to one of the questions. Inventory manager, customer scorecard, customer service, accounts receivable, accounts payable, purchasing, and executive. So a lot of these are very similar in nature. So these are in the catalog. They have existed for a while, some longer than others. The inventory manager is a lot of graphs and also events. These events have to all be turned on. They're part of the configuration guide, and a menu to shortcuts within CSD. Whereas something like accounts payable, we get a few graphs at the top, and then we're really into a lot of mashup inquiries. So for instance, here I'm looking at a specific vendor. I can see open vendor purchase orders. I don't have to go to PO inquiry to do that. I see it right here, and I could filter that list. You know, I only want to see purchase orders versus quotes versus direct. I can sort it by certain information. Then I also can see their open balances, which would be a vendor inquiry. I can look at their contacts. So if I need to call Toto USA, who's the person at that company, who's the contacts in Contact Manager for that person that I can call. I can look at open documents. I see some open alerts, you know, new vendors, and then a shortcut menu to functions within CSD. Accounts receivable looks very, very similar, right? Here I have the contacts within there. Again, this goes to the contacts within the system. So here's the phone number, here's the email address. If I click on this, it will open up an email. There's a new customer that got created, invoice processing exception. These are all functions that were already existing within Cloud Suite distribution in the Ming.le portal. So starting with the October release, there were 2 new workspaces, and Clark brought up and showed those to you, but I really want to go into a little more depth here. So first and foremost is the customer service workspace. So first thing that's really important to know is if you go out to help, you can find this page here. I can actually even put it in the chat for everybody. That will link you over to the help that's right where customer service and buyer workspace configuration shows. There's a KB article associated to this. If you click on that KB article, you'll go in and there are a couple of attachments. There's a guide and there's some artifacts. You need those artifacts to make all this stuff work. So at the end of the day, I would go, if you're gonna do this yourself, go and roll it out. Now, the first thing you see on both of these workspaces is announcements. So announcements show right up at the top. So if I go over to the OS portal and I click on announcements, there's an option here, welcome to OS Portal. So I can define, you know, an alert or an announcement that's going to show up on those 2 pages. What's the start, what's the end date, and what's the format of said message. Now, I had to log out and log back in, so I think that's what you have to do to get that announcement to actually show even after I set it up. And that may be because the announcement already existed, I'm not sure. The next thing you see, this starts to be an actionable panel. This is where this is really, really cool stuff. Because before, when you looked at this OS portal, there were some events and alerts, but it wasn't as actionable as what you see here. So on your radar, so it says for the week, for this week, you have the following. You have 5 shipments that are past due. Now that 5 shipments, when I click here, shows in the middle panel, and I can click on that, and it gives me a link right to all the different orders that are tied to that. Now, right from here, I can click on that link. It takes me into CSD to that specific order that it's showing me on my workspace panel, right? The next thing I could do is I could create an activity. This is activity and activity manager. This is where I could create an activity and say, I called Brenda at C&M Supply and blah, blah, blah. This is what happened. The next thing would be orders that are at risk, orders that might not ship in time. So it's giving me that list of orders that are not going to ship soon enough or might be at risk of shipping in time based on the date that they're due to ship. I have a panel here that is orders that are on hold. So all the orders are on hold. Certainly I can go into customer or the credit release screen and I can see that, but I get this on my home page to manage. And then I have an expiring quote view. So any quotes that are due to expire in the next, on that couple of days, I could see them. It gives me an option even to convert it to a sales order. So if I call this customer, which I can click on and start dialing, I can then say, hey, let's get this done, and they can, we can convert it to an order. On the bottom left here, I see some links into CSD. So customer pricing inquiry, giving me the links into the different functions within the system, print quotes and acknowledgments, customer inquiry, order entry. Those are all on the left there. On the right is what we call quick actions. So these are functions where I don't have to go into CSD to perform these actions. So in this case, look up price and availability. I don't have to go to OEIP to get this answer. I can just go here, type in that product here, do a search, and it will find it. And I can't get the warehouse in here right now. So short in the user. I can look up a customer. I can see their name, their phone number, their email address, their open balances. I could email them right from this panel. I can create a customer activity and activity manager, and I can view my open orders. So I can view any open orders within the system. In the middle down below here, I have orders that need to be expedited. So if I'm looking at here, I see all of my customers, and I could filter that list, right? I could only look at Advanced Pourwall, and it says he has only one open order, and then I could link on to that, and again, drill into CSD to get all that information. So I'm finding my way through the system. But then I also saw, if I clear this panel out here, I see that C&M Supply had 98 orders, and so I might need to work a lot more on this. Now, at any point in time, if I'm on this panel and I want to know, hey, has anything changed? Is there an update that I need to know about? I can click the down arrow on this tab and click refresh, and it will go out to CSD and update the data to the latest and greatest information that's out there and available to me. So that's the customer service panel. Any questions at this point, Clark?
Nope, nothing new yet.
Okay, awesome. So let's go over to the buyer's workspace. Now, one of the things that Clark showed you, first and foremost, that piece that makes the buyer's workspace work, and you'll see that if you go here to the help, again, your configuration is all here in the help, and all the artifacts that you need to load. When you come here to workspaces, this is really important because this is what drives the buyer workspace specifically, is who am I, okay? First and foremost, when I go into this user setting, what company am I, user ID am I working with? What buyer code am I within that company? What date range am I looking at when I'm in my on your radar panel? So that's important. And then how long do I snooze? So if I get an alert and I say, hey, I don't want to look at this again for some time, well, how long is that time? Is it 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours? How long do I want to put that to sleep until I look at it again? So I go in and I configure that, I click save, and I come back here. Both of these panels, but both of these workspaces, by the way, are in that standard catalog that Clark pointed out. So if I go to the widget catalog, you can see buyer's workspace and customer service workspace. So that's, they're out there. Same announcement show up at the top. Now I have my under the radar. So I'm a buyer. I'm that specific buyer, in this case, the industrial buyer, right? And what orders are in the system that are past the delivery date? Now, this is really, really important, you guys. So when you put a PO in the system, you must identify the buyer code. It is not a required field. So if you pass that by, then it won't show up here. That was an important lesson that I learned along the way. So if you go into POET here and I put in a PO for one vendor, I want to identify the buyer code. So that's really important. And I can say the due date is 0206, right? So it's past due before I put it in. So I'll drop a line on there. Let's not drop that one. And we'll go ahead and finish that guy. It's past due. So now if I go back to my workspace here and I hit refresh, I now have 2 orders that are past due. Then I can go to my review and I could see, you know, these are that's that PO I just put in. I can click on and see the line details for that. I can open a CAM activity. I can open Activity Manager, and it gives you a choice to, you know, I can snooze one of those activities, and when I snooze it, it's going to snooze for the period of time that I told it over my user settings, however long that you choose. Expect a receipt. So for the next 7 days, because that's what I set my user setting, what's due. So this is due between April 8th, which would be today, and the next 7 days. There's a PO that's due into my warehouse. So I want to know what's coming in, and also what POs have not been approved. So I've entered a PO. I don't have approval, so it won't print, fax, email, EDI, or however you get it there. So that's something that I need to resolve and approve if I'm going to allow that to happen. I also have what's in my buyer's control center here. So I can see that my buyer's control center, or my purchasing demand center, sorry, it's old terminology. Here are all the things on there, but it's giving me it in summary graph form. So it says, hey, I've got 11 normal POs, 1 manual, 9 below critical, 2 NPNA. So they're all there on the left. On the right, there's a manual PO acknowledgement. So I can manually acknowledge a PO right here on the screen. I can look up the vendor contact information, just like I looked up the customer contact information. So I'm looking up Toto USA in here, and it's drilling me back through, and I don't have a contact set up within CSD for them. In the middle, I have those POs to expedite, so I can look and see, you know, which POs are past due or due in the next 7 days. And then on the right, I didn't even talk about it in the customer service workspace. We have a bunch of new skills added to Coleman that allow me to, instead of going into CSD, which I can do this here, I can do this in Teams, I can do this on the mobile app, I can answer questions. So I can come over to Coleman and I can say year-to-date balance for vendor. And assuming I define that skill right, or I could talk it, right? That you don't have to, what is my year-to-date balance for a vendor? She doesn't want to work right now.
And when you get a break here, Daryl, we do have some questions that have come up.
Okay, go for it, Clark. Well, I'm trying to get, oh, there we go. So these skills are new and added as part of the these new workspaces that were added. So you get some new skills and new information, and this will continue to be an expanded thing. So again, I could have done this all by voice rather than typing. I use the keyboard because it's just my nature. But if you don't have the keyboard and you just want to talk to you can do it. And there's a Teams plugin for Coleman as well available. All right, Clark, go for it.
Okay, Brian Myers asked, is there any lag when refreshing Workspace?
I've not seen any. Have you?
I have not either, no.
Okay.
With regards to the customer activity, could those activities be assigned to a user? Example, send an email to a general mailbox. Could that request be put into the customer activity and then assigned to a user?
Yeah,
So
you used to be able to assign them to different users, but I don't see here a way to assign it to somebody else.
could be based on security too, but I'm not sure from the workspace. That's one that we'll
I
have to
know
look
in
into.
Activity Manager you can, or
Yeah.
you used to be able to. So in Activity Manager, I can specifically assign it to any user, but I think on those activities that are on my home panel, I don't think it allows me to assign that activity to somebody else. That's a
Okay.
good, oh yeah, it doesn't, they don't let you override the user. So it might be a security issue.
Question, can we proxy in as users to see what they see and have access to? I don't know of a way to do that with
I don't know where
these
to
home
do that.
pages either.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you
no.
just have to log in as them.
And Jody says that she doesn't see the CSD workspaces under user settings. What permission am I missing? So we'll have to look at that. I'm not sure which
Well,
permission you should need for that to see
first
the
thing you got to
workspaces.
make sure is that you have OS Portal. So these two workspaces will not work in Mingle. So you must be on this portal in up front.
And Sanjay just asked, can we migrate to new portal platform sooner than April? Yes, you can.
You
You
can
can
do it
enter in,
tomorrow.
yep,
Yeah.
you can enter an incident with Infor and give them your tenant names